Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Man, is it good to be alive! Welcome, folks, to AniMat's crazy cartoon cast! And boy, what an episode do we have today! And I couldn't be more excited to be here on the internet with you all. Because if you guys have not seen my social media recently, well, believe it or not, I actually do have quite a story. And actually, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and begin with this because, oh my god, it is something that I must share. Because, believe it or not, folks, if you have not read the little story of what happened to me on either Facebook or Twitter, well, believe it or not, I was the luckiest YouTuber on the platform, mainly because I pretty much cheated death. Because throughout the whole week, believe it or not, I had 3 copyright strikes on my YouTube channel. Yes, 3 full-blown copyright strikes. Not small claims, but strikes. And as you guys probably know, 3 strikes and you're pretty much out. Your channel would be terminated. But one good news is that recently they did make some changes in the system where they do give you about a week to go and try to settle with these strikes to see if you can get any of them resolved. And very luckily, the thing is that today was supposed to be the due day that, I'm recording this, by the way, on March 9th, on May 9th, sorry, on a Saturday. And it was supposed to be today, the due day of when YouTube should have taken down my channel. But it was literally just yesterday where one of my strikes was taken out. Now, this is just a short summary of it. You could go on my Facebook or my Twitter. You could read the full story of it. But that's basically the reason why I feel so exhilarated. I feel so happy because after a whole week of just stress and anxiety and worry that's been looming over me for days on end, and having a few bad days at the same time where it did hurt my self-esteem, it did hurt my motivation and all that kind of stuff, you know, I definitely do feel happy that now I got that massive weight off my shoulders and I can move forward happily knowing that my channel is definitely safe. And I will be a little bit more careful when it comes to handling these copyright claims, of course, because they can get quite severe nowadays. So it's just a little bit of a warning. So at least during this pandemic, I'll try to be a little more careful now. Alright, but anyway, story time is done. Well, at least for my story, because I got a whole bunch of stories that I need to cover for you guys on this particular episode. Yes, some of them might not necessarily be about animation, but they will still be fascinating to go and talk about nonetheless. So I would like to go into the chat wall and ask you all, are you ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Let me hear it. Are you all ready? Alright, let me see. Are we all prepared? Yes. Oh, okay. People are excited. People are prepared. That's what I like to hear. All right. That is definitely great. Oh, and apparently, there is one more thing I would like to add. Yes, unfortunately, there have been a couple of significant deaths that honestly did shock me as well. I don't really have any room to talk about it in this full episode, but just a quick shout out that unfortunately, yes, it is true. This week we have seen the passing of 2 icons. First of all, Roy from Siegfried and Roy fame. So unfortunately, he's gone due to COVID-19. And also, literally, as I'm recording this today, this morning, Little Richard, the guy who's saying like, Tutti Frutti, oh Rudy, wop bop doo bop, wop bamboo. Like, that guy has unfortunately passed away. So for both of them, may they rest in peace. But anyways, now with that out of the way, Roy Horn, by the way. Okay, thank you. So, now with that said, now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and now get things started. And so with our first story that I have for you today, would technically count as the biggest movie news of the week. In fact, this was the story that did start out this week, considering that we had May the 4th be with you. A stupid pun that I'm not necessarily a fan of, but basically May 4th was Star Wars Day. And that was at the point when Disney decided they would go and actually make a huge announcement regarding the future of Star Wars movies. Yes, right now they're on a major break, but in the future, we do have a little something to go and look forward to. And that is going to be the next Star Wars film that will be directed by Taika Waititi. Yes, one of Hollywood's hottest directors right now has signed on with Lucasfilm and Disney to go and both direct and co-write an upcoming Star Wars feature. And since I did say co-write, he's going to have a partner with him to go and write the script, which that person shall be Christy Wilson Cairns, who recently was actually one of the writers, next with Sam Mendes, to do 1917, which was a major Oscar contender, and actually did walk away with a few Oscars itself. Now, in terms of Taika Waititi's experience with Star Wars, not only is he a fan, but he actually did work on some Star Wars projects recently. To read you a little bit from my source here on Deadline, it states here, Waititi, who won an Oscar this year for adapting the screenplay for Jojo Rabbit, which he also directed and which was nominated for Best Picture, already has his hands in the Star Wars game, having directed the season finale of Disney Plus's The Mandalorian. He also voiced the bounty hunter droid IG-11 in the series, which marked the first live-action Star Wars series and has been a big hit, with 2 more seasons at least on the way. Now, the thing is with Taika Waititi, of course, not only does he have experience in making like these major motion pictures or just making movies in general, of course, like he has Jojo Rabbit, he has done some indie films and a few other projects and stuff like that. But at the same time, this guy also did work on these big franchise films. In fact, the one that really did launch his popularity, the one that really made him the big name director we know him today, is with Marvel, where he was the director of Thor Ragnarok. And on top of that, this is to say that this is going to be one of the many projects that he is going to be working on, because there is a huge list of upcoming films and television shows that Taika Waititi is going to be on board with. To mention the few that has been on this little list here on Deadline, one of them is going to be from Searchlight Pictures, which is called Next Goal Wins, which is going to be about the American Samoa soccer team. And then, of course, he is going to be in charge of the next Thor movie, which is going to be Thor: Love and Thunder. And also, one little comment that I want to make that is a little bit strange when it comes to this article in particular is that for some reason it seems a little bit dated, because it mentioned that the movie would be coming out on November 5th, 2021, which is no longer the case anymore, considering that Disney did move that release date, where now Thor: Love and Thunder is going to be out, I believe, on February 2022. I think it's February, either February or March, one of those. And also at the same time, it mentioned that he would be working on a Flash Gordon animated feature. Now, I remember when that was mentioned, but then again, I believe that project was canceled, or I don't know. I don't think this project was moving forward anytime soon. Now, recently, there is an animated project that was announced that Taika Waititi is going to be working on, where he does have a couple of animated animated series that will be with Netflix, where it's going to be based on Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but I don't think the Flash Gordon animated movie is going to be happening anytime soon. And yes, there are some people out there that have corrected me in the case of Thor: Love and Thunder, and it is indeed February of 2022. So yeah, like mainly it seems a little strange that this article made a little bit of an error. But yes, the big thing right now is the fact that we do know that one of the upcoming Star Wars movies is going to be directed by Taika Waititi and also written by him along with one of the writers of 1917. Oh, and I almost forgot. One more thing to mention is that so far, in terms of plans for future Star Wars movies, there isn't anything that is big so far. There isn't anything that's like in the works that is actually coming soon. The most that we do know so far is literally just the trilogy that's going to be done by Rian Johnson, which you guys know as the director of Episode 8, The Last Jedi. And so, this is pretty much where we are. Now, regarding if Taika Waititi's movie is going to literally be the next Star Wars film, that I don't know. But in this case over here, with the fact that we got Taika Waititi to be in charge of a Star Wars movie, I'm not gonna lie, that actually does sound exciting. And honestly, I got some very strong feelings about this, that it could actually go very, very well. Especially the fact that he already does have a very strong relationship with the people at Lucasfilm and, well, especially with Disney after his major success with Jojo Rabbit and Thor Ragnarok and stuff like that. Like, he has already established himself with Disney as a prominent and acclaimed director. And in the case with Star Wars, like, I honestly thought he did a great job with his inclusion in The Mandalorian, both as the voice of IG-11 and also the season finale. Now, I will admit, I wouldn't necessarily say the season finale was the best episode in the Mandalorian, but it was still a good one. It was still, like, one that was really worth watching and that was a lot of fun and did tie up a bit of some loose ends. Like, it was definitely a well-made episode, and a lot of it is because of Taika Waititi's inclusion and Taika Waititi's directing. So that was definitely a lot of fun to go and witness. So we already know what he can do with his inclusion or his signature filmmaking style onto the Star Wars world, where he knows how to keep it respectful to the traditions of the Star Wars storytelling, but also add a little bit of his own twist to it to make it both exciting, fun, and really put your heart and really like get audiences to be emotionally invested into it. Because looking back into the season finale of The Mandalorian, it's probably the one that is the most the one where like people would be the most emotionally invested, especially with what has happened in the episode. I'm not going to spoil anything for those who haven't seen it, but I would definitely say that it was definitely one of the more emotional episodes with some of the things that happen. And I mean, like, I guess in a way you could say you kind of have to, because it is the season finale of one of the biggest streaming shows that's currently on right now. Yeah, so like we already got a taste of what Taika Waititi can do with Star Wars. Now, take that in a much bigger scale with a movie. Honestly, that would sound really exciting already. Like, even though we don't know what the story could be or how it's going to go, I think this is honestly great. And already with the people that are involved, with not just Taika Waititi, but you also got one of the writers of 1917, I think honestly, like, this could really work out. And I honestly, I feel like there could be a pretty strong balance, actually, where you got the fun side with Taika Waititi, and then, like, technically you also got one of the 1917 writers that can actually bring it back to a more serious scale, which Star Wars is not necessarily afraid to go into something that is more, that would go in a place that would be a little bit more serious, or really emphasize the war in Star Wars. You know, something like a great example that I can think of is actually Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which it could debatably be said to be one of the most serious Star Wars movies, or definitely one of the most heavy Star Wars movie as well. Even though it is literally just the Death Star movie, where the most prominent character that everyone can recognize is literally just the Death Star, and we learn about the origins of its creation and stuff like that. It really does get heavy with the war aspect and people trying to fight for trying to go and release the weak point, like to know how to destroy the Death Star, which would immediately go segue onto A New Hope, where we have that weird surprising shot of the young Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. I don't know, like, was I the only one that was kind of shocked to see that at the end of Rogue One? I remember I was, like, a little bit freaked out when I saw that in theaters, but anyways, going back into this, so, like, yeah, we could definitely see that these are two people that are highly qualified in order to go and actually work on a Star Wars movie. And I guess, like, some people could say, like, you don't know about 1917 because, like, would that count as, like, a major motion picture? Would Christy Wilson Cairns be able to go and handle something that would be bigger, like a multi-million-dollar, big-budget franchise movie? I think, honestly, she can. Because in the case of 1917, like, it's not necessarily a indie film per se, since it does have a bit of a budget itself, and it does have a major studio running behind it, even though it is technically built as, like, this Oscar bait movie. But still, like, you know, it is kind of a weird balance with 1917. It's like somewhere between indie, where the filmmakers do have a lot of creative control in order to create something artistic and very expressive, in order to highlight the events of World War I. But then again, there is a lot of a budget that went into 1917 and a big studio behind it in order to actually make that happen. So, again, when it comes to Christy, I think, like, she definitely would be very qualified to work on this movie. And technically, like, she is just jumping from one war movie to another. It's just 1917, like, she's literally down to earth, and then now she has to go to space with Star Wars. But like, honestly, there isn't technically a whole lot to go and say about it. Like, I know there might be some people who would have a little bit of concerns with how this could go, or if Taika Waititi might go a little bit too extreme, because the worst case scenario that could happen, that people could worry about, is if we would have another repeated moment of what happened with Solo, because you guys remember what happened with that film, where originally it was supposed to be Phil Lord and Chris Miller that were supposed to be directing the feature, like, they were supposed to be the head honchos of that movie, but apparently because of massive creative differences and their style of filmmaking is just way too out of control for the standards that's at Lucasfilm and at Disney, they ended up getting kicked out. And some people might be worried if, like, history might repeat itself with other filmmakers, especially with someone that could be as critically acclaimed as Taika Waititi. But then again, like I said, with Taika Waititi, he definitely does have the experience with Star Wars. Like, he already set his foot and already set a trust with the people at Lucasfilm, so I don't think, like, that's going to happen again. I mean, like, it's Taika Waititi. He's definitely no Phil Lord and Chris Miller, thank God. So at least he does have going for him that I think, like, with the movie that he has, it will definitely stay, or at least with Taika Waititi, he will stay with the project. Now, the big question is going to be regarding, is this going to be the next Star Wars movie, or is this going to be coming out soon? And to that, I gotta say, I don't know, because there is no official release date, and so far when it comes to the planning of Star Wars movies, there hasn't been anything that's really moving forward just yet. Even with the Rian Johnson trilogy that I mentioned before, we haven't heard anything from that yet, outside of the fact that, well, it was announced as that, and that's pretty much it. And there are some other movie projects that they wanted to do. Like, there was at one point they wanted to do another trilogy with the Game of Thrones creators, but then suddenly it didn't necessarily work out, where those guys ended up getting the same treatment as Phil Lord and Chris Miller, where they ended up getting the boot and got kicked out. But honestly, if I would have to go and make a prediction on when this movie is going to be coming out, like, if this is the next Star Wars movie, the next one to go and like reboot the franchise to bring in another one. I know some people say that there is like a new schedule, but then again, with what's been happening right now, that could definitely change, and you know it. Like, I know some people could point out that technically Disney did schedule one for 2022, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is going to happen. Like, I would say for this one right over here, if there would be a release date for Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie, I would say at the earliest it would be 2023. Because again, we are talking about a Star Wars movie, and considering that we are facing the pandemic right now, the most that Christy and Taika can do right now is just work on the writing. It's not like they can go and immediately plan on doing some concept art or go to the studio and like really go and set things up for their next movie. So I think 2023 could possibly be the next release date for this film in particular, or if not, then probably sometime in 2024 that we're going to see that film, and that's pretty much it. Where they will like they're gonna need some time in order to craft it, and who knows how long it's going to be, especially right now when some circumstances are delaying some things. So again, you got to keep in mind with all this, everything has just been announced. We don't know when this is coming out. We don't know what the story is going to be. We don't know who's going to be among the cast. We only know about Taika Waititi and Krysty Wilson-Cairns, which on that front, if this is the only information that we do have for now, then honestly, I feel very excited. I could definitely see this be something to go and reboot the Star Wars movies, where for now Disney is definitely taking a long break with all the Star Wars films, where for now they just want to go and put their focus with the franchise onto Disney Plus, where they just want to make a few shows to accommodate with The Mandalorian, where there's one series that's going to be from, I believe, the creator of Russian Doll, the director or the creator of Russian Doll, either or, and then there's the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that they really want to make. So right now their focus is just on making streaming shows. But when the movies are going to be coming back, I think this would definitely be a great welcome. If they are going to start a new Star Wars movie, if they're going to pick this, because honestly, like if they're going to take a hiatus, then their comeback better be something big. And I think like this should be the one, considering that they already got an acclaimed director already attached to it, and someone who is highly beloved in the movie world and within the film community. I think this would definitely be a smart move. So if Star Wars is going to come back, they better come back big and exciting, and especially something to go and make things up after the massive disappointment with The Rise of Skywalker. So overall, for me, as a casual Star Wars fan myself, I would definitely say I am definitely hyped up for this movie. It could be a few years until this one is going to come out, but it definitely does show that the future of Star Wars movies is definitely gonna be bright. Okay, so with that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to go and ask you all, what do you think about the announcement of Taika Waititi to direct and co-write the next Star Wars movie? Are you guys excited for it? Do you guys have any of your any little doubts? I would like to know what you think. And oh boy, there's a lot of people who have something to say about this. Okay. Let's see now. I'm really happy that he got to do a Star Wars movie, and I am interested to see the other movies by Rian Johnson and the one being produced by Kevin Feige. Oh yeah, that's another one I did forget to mention. Thank you for bringing that up. That is true that there's apparently one that Kevin Feige wants to step in and he wants to go and produce one. Like, who knows? Maybe this could be it. There's no indication about which Star Wars movie he could go and produce. Maybe Kevin Feige and Taika Waititi can collaborate again on this Star Wars movie. Like, that would actually be a pretty epic combo right there. That would be a great, like, again, to go back into the theory of like a great Star Wars comeback. Like, imagine a movie directed by Taika Waititi. One of the writers is of 1917, produced by freaking Kevin Feige. I think that would be a combination to make an epic comeback. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'll go back into the comment. Let's hope that this doesn't end with him leaving or being fired like Lord and Miller, Colin Trevorrow, Josh Tank, or Benioff and Weiss. But Waititi already seems to be in good terms with Disney and Lucasfilm, so that's very unlikely. Now let Rian Johnson's dream come true and have Robert Eggers direct a weird avant-garde Star Wars movie. You never know, honestly. Like, it could possibly happen. I mean, it depends on the direction that they want to take. I mean, like, we've already got some weird stuff happening with, like, the recent trilogy we had, so, like, why not bring something avant-garde to it? Why not bring, like, a brand new style to the world of Star Wars? Okay, anyways, we got one here that says, can't wait, Taika Waititi is having a good track record with his films. Thor Ragnarok, Jojo Rabbit, and Hunt for the Wilder People are seen as great films and will be future classics. I bet people who hated the sequel trilogy wanted him to remake the entire trilogy. You never know. That probably. If the movie is good, J.J. Abrams will probably be like, making a good Star Wars film, is it possible to learn this power? And Taika will respond, not from a Jedi. So that is a possibility there. Anyways, wow, this really came out of the blue. I love Taika's interpretation of Thor, so I will gladly be anticipating his take on Star Wars. But there is one downside to this: the fans. To them, it wouldn't matter if Taika won an Oscar. I guarantee you that the fandom menace will be furious and blind to the film's quality because Taika is in white. You know, that is kind of a controversial statement there, but at the same time, you're definitely not wrong. Because, like, especially because of the sequel trilogy and what has happened, we have definitely seen a massive toxicity coming from the Star Wars fan base to the point where it really did get out of hand. And the amount of hate that was given, especially to The Last Jedi, honestly, like, I wouldn't say this as my opinion. I would say this as a fact that, like, the hate on it was way too overblown. It's just way too ridiculous. And people making things up that doesn't even exist, like an SJW agenda, or trying to force their ideologies to try to justify their hate for a film that didn't really do anything wrong. Because a lot of the hate, like, honestly, it's unjustified. It really is. A lot of it is either because of misogyny, because there were a lot of prominent women that are featured there, or because of racism, because of a lot of prominent people of color in there. So honestly, that could be a possibility. So coming from those people that passionately hate it, like, I don't mean just casually hate it, but like really, really hate The Last Jedi and stuff like that with a passion, yeah, that could unfortunately be the case, that they're just going to put hate on the movie because it's Taika Waititi directing it and he's not white. And especially, like, the co-writer is also a woman, so that can add some extra salt to those angry, sensitive white men, so that could unfortunately be the case. A controversial statement, but not a wrong statement. Let's see what else we got here. I'm not sure if this movie will exist in the light of day in the future due to how Lucasfilm and Disney treat their directors for the Star Wars films. I would be for another Star Wars as long as all the creative control by one director and no interference whatsoever. Don't want to jump aboard just yet, so I hope this movie gets made by Waititi if it's gonna happen. But, okay, like, I understand the worry because, like, one of the commenters did actually list down a significant list of directors that were involved but then suddenly got kicked out. That is true. But then again, it is Taika Waititi, and he already did get involved with the Star Wars universe with The Mandalorian. Like, he got a little bit of his foot onto how everything works. And so far, it looks like everything is going well. And I'm sure that the big reason why he even got hired to go and direct and co-write is because of the work that he has done with the Mandalorian. So honestly, I shouldn't worry too much on that. So I'm just gonna lay that out there. Let's see now. I'm still looking forward to any Star Wars movies that comes out, and having the man who made the Thor movies good, I think I'm excited for this one in particular. As for what kind of movie Taika will make, I speak for everyone and their mothers when I say, please be an Old Republic movie. Ooh, that's going to be a pretty interesting thing. Like, I never really thought of that entirely, but, that would be a great discussion with Star Wars fans. Like, what kind, like, what, so, where in the storyline should Taika Waititi direct his movie? Like, something before the prequels or maybe something afterwards? Like, that would be, that would actually be a very interesting discussion right there, all on itself. All right, I'm going to go and read one more comment before we're going to jump on to the next story. Let's see. With Taika Waititi in the director's chair, this will certainly be a fun and amazing movie. This is the guy who made probably the most fun Marvel movie with Thor Ragnarok, which is especially noteworthy since Thor's previous movie, The Dark World, is often considered the worst MCU movie. So I would say that this Star Wars movie is in good hands. Well, I'm glad to see that everybody does, I'm glad to see that everybody does trust Taika Waititi involved with the next Star Wars movie. Okay, so with that said now, it is now time that we are going to go and jump onto the next story, which is going to be a little bit of an update from the last story that I talked about. Well, not the last story. I mean, from last week, actually. From one of the stories of last week, there is a bit of an update. And what I'm going to be talking about is regarding the live-action remake of Disney's Hercules. Now, you may recall right when it was announced, one thing that seemed to be very surprising is the fact that the people that are so far involved in there are actually superhero people. Like, people who have worked in the superhero genre. Like, the writer of it is the guy who is currently writing Shang-Chi. And the producers, like the people that are going to be like in charge of the project, are Anthony and Joe Russo. The Russo Brothers, of course, the guys who have done Civil War, Endgame, and Infinity War. Surprising to see their names to be attached to a Disney live-action remake. But from there, you may recall that also there were a lot of rumors that were spreading around. The possibility of how this movie is going to be. Is it going to be like a shot-for-shot remake? Or is it mostly going to be the same? And who's going to be involved? Or all that kind of stuff. Like, people really want to know how this movie is going to be. Considering it is a major Disney fan favorite, a lot of people would be going around and just speculate what they don't know. However, this week, we did actually get some clarification coming from the Collider, where they went and talked directly with Joe and Anthony Russo regarding this live-action remake of Hercules. And they talked about the usual stuff, the kind of things that you would expect when talking to the press regarding their upcoming projects, or in this case, an upcoming remake, where they said that they love Hercules, their kids love Hercules, and when Disney announced that, or when Disney said, when Disney mentioned to them that they were going to do a live-action remake of Hercules, they decided to go and jump onto the opportunity to be producers, and that's exactly what happened. But then, they talked about the big question regarding how faithful it is to the animated film. Because in the case of the Disney live-action remakes, it can happen when they can actually be faithful to a fault. Even in this article here in the Collider, it did actually mention about, of course, the infamous shot-for-shot remake of The Lion King, and also mention about Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and how they're a little too faithful to their animated counterparts. And from there, apparently it was Anthony Russo that decided to go and answer that question, in which he states, well, I think you always have to bring something new to the table because from our perspective as storytellers, it's not compelling for us to do a literal translation. We've already done that with our Marvel films. We don't do literal translations of the comics because we feel like if you want that story, you can go read that story. We're going to give you a different story. I think we'll do something that's in the veins of the original and inspired by it, but we are also bringing some new elements to the table. So that's basically what they are promising. And on one hand, I will say, there's a part of me that's reading this and going, yeah, sure, we've heard that before. Because let's be honest, this is actually a question that's been asked several times to several filmmakers that were making a live-action remake of a Disney film. And often, they would bring out that same kind of answer. In fact, like, even Jon Favreau mentioned that. Like, he delivered that same kind of answer when talking about the live-action, talking about the remake of The Lion King, and look what that happened. He basically lied to us. But in this case here, with Joe and Anthony Russo saying that, honestly, in this case, I feel like this is a little bit different from the others because, looking at it, even though they are producers, they're not necessarily directors, but they are still one of the main heads of the project being producers. I look at this and I feel like I do believe them. And it sounds crazy, but the more I do think about it, the more I feel like leaving Joe and Anthony Russo in charge of this project as producers, I think this is actually a great idea. I think that is something that could actually help this Hercules remake to be a little bit more different and to stand out compared to the animated counterpart. To not fall in the same trap as Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast or The Lion King and have it stand out as its own Hercules movie. Because really think about it, because this is something that especially Marvel fans would really know. Because if you do compare to the comics with their movies in particular, like with Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, you'll notice that there are several differences. There are, well, not several, but I mean, like, there are a lot of significant differences. That it's not exactly like how the comic would go and tell the story. It's a little bit more different. They definitely did put their own spin to it to make it stand out compared to the comic. To not make it like a full-on adaptation of the comic, but to go and take its story and try to adapt it in a way that is a little more unique and more suitable for the big screen. So from there, that's why you would see a lot of things that are not necessarily as true to the comic. And they want to make sure that they want to put their mark on the story. Not just like with all of Marvel and stuff like that, but they want to put their mark on their story. And with that said, I got a feeling that they could probably do that with Hercules, that they could go and find a way to make it stand out, to make it more different. And honestly, now I feel like it could possibly be true, the fact that maybe they will make it a lot more action-packed than just a musical, to make it a little bit like the Mulan remake in a sense, where it leans a lot more in the action and sacrifice the musical numbers in order to have it stand out more, to make it a little bit more different than the animated counterpart. That could be a little bit of a controversial decision, but then again, at least we're not watching the same thing as before. At least it's not like something like The Lion King or Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast. Like, at least we know that we're going to be seeing something that's not going to make us sit and watch this thinking, well, why am I watching this and not the animated film where I can easily go and check it out either on Disney Plus or on my DVD or Blu-ray and stuff like that. At least with them, they know that they're going to go and make something different. And honestly, I really do feel like there is a strong chance that, yeah, to repeat myself, what I said last time, honestly, it does seem like it will follow the same direction as Mulan, where it's not going to be a musical at all, And it's going to be a lot more action-packed because, number one, look at the people who are involved. You got Marvel people. You got the writer of Shang-Chi, and the guy, and like on top of that, his previous works include The Expendables, and then you got freaking Joe and Anthony Russo directing the whole movie. So that is a major indicator that it will lean a lot in the action, and they will try to find a way to make the action the true star of Hercules, to really highlight the moments like Hercules fighting against the Titans, or Hercules fighting against the Hydra, or his training in order to become like the muscle-bound Hercules that we know him as. So with all that combination. And also there is one more thing I almost forgot to mention, is the fact that even to this day, we don't have a songwriter attached to it. We don't have somebody who is involved to go and write the songs, or we don't have Alan Menken that's attached to it to go and help out to create a new interpretation of something like Go the Distance, or Zero to Hero, or I Won't Say I'm in Love. We don't have any of that. Again, that's going to be if that really is the case, I'm sure that's going to be a highly controversial decision, because many fans of Hercules, their favorite things about it is definitely the musical numbers. And without those musical numbers, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of backlash about it. Well, at least temporarily. But then again, at least it will be a sacrifice, again, to go and make it unique, to go and make it stand out from the animated counterpart. Because that's probably something that Disney should go and try to actually focus on, like, to not make it too much of the same thing. I mean, yes, with the previous movies like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, they made over $1 billion each. But the thing is that afterwards, they've received some very significant backlash and some negative representation. Well, they pretty much got, like, a negative image because of what they have crafted. Creatively, it pretty much was a disaster for Disney. The fact that they would spend hundreds of millions of dollars to literally just make the exact same movie as before, with a few small changes and a lot of downgrades as well. Pretty much showing how animation can be superior than live action in a way. But anyways, in all seriousness, that should probably be something that Disney should learn from The Lion King, where, yeah, it can make a lot of money, but it's probably not a good idea for their image to go and make the same movie again. Because if they end up doing like The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin, and just make the same movie as before, then eventually audiences are going to lose trust for Disney, and they're just not going to go and watch their movies. And I mean, like, it has happened before that these Disney live action remakes can actually flop at the box office. Case in point, take a look at Dumbo. So with this, I think honestly, this could probably be a very good idea and a very smart decision of the fact that they got Joe and Anthony Russo, where they want to do something a little bit more different. Even if it means sacrificing the musical numbers, who knows? But at least, honestly, looking at this, I do feel like this is a pretty good promise. I feel like this is something that I could trust them in order to go and produce the live-action remake of Disney's Hercules. Based on their experience with what they have done with the Marvel movies, if they can have that same kind of care that they gave to the Marvel films, and they could put that onto Hercules, then honestly, I think they're going to be in good hands. All we need to know is just... we just need to find out who's going to be the director, and we could just go from there to see if this remake could actually be worthwhile to check out or not. So honestly, for now, I will say that with these producers, this remake is definitely in good hands, and I'm honestly pretty optimistic for this one. So yeah, like, pretty surprising that I would say that about a Disney live action remake, but yeah, I think this could possibly turn out to be okay. Who knows? All right, so, ooh, excuse me. Wow, that came out big. Now, anyways, now it's time I want to know from you guys in the chat wall, and I would like to ask you all, How do you feel about Joe and Anthony Russo producing, and do you trust their word when they say that they won't make a shot-for-shot remake and they will add their own interpretation onto Disney's Hercules? Do you trust them? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you still doubt this live-action remake? Let me know what you think. All right, let's see. What do we got here? I'll go with this. Gulp. I'm worried if this movie will get the same reaction in Greece like the 1997 Disney film. Will this movie would be more faithful to the original Greek mythology? I mean, Zeus in the myth is like Pepe Le Pew. It was bad enough. I had to shut my mouth about the film when I had a trip to Greece on April 2018, especially the Pnyx Hill controversy, which has an angry Greek man saying it was another case of foreign distortion of our history and culture just to suit their commercial interests. Maybe I think I mispronounced Pnyx or anything, something. I apologize for that, but okay, so you're worried actually. Well, in terms of the Greeks' reactions, it could be possible, but again, I think it really does depend on the Russo brothers' interpretation, what they want to add as producers. But I will say that unfortunately, they're not going to go and fully stay true to the actual Greek mythology, considering that there are like tons of changes that they have done in the animated film. Let's be honest, like technically Hades is not as bad as he's not as bad of a guy as you'd expect. Like you could say that Hades in the original myth is actually a nicer guy than James Woods in real life. But also, the thing is that there's no way in hell that Disney will faithfully interpret Zeus. That dude, like, I know how Zeus is in the original myth. Like, the thing is, Zeus is a horny mofo. Holy crap. That guy needs to calm down. That guy needs to learn that, okay, settle down your dick, man. Like, can we just, like, get some blood out of there so we can put some of that onto your head, man? It seems like the blood is permanently stuck in your dick and doesn't want to come out. I mean, come on, man. You gotta cook that noodle. You gotta make it limp for once. Okay. Now, anyways, this may be the smartest thing to do with the movie. By doing this, we will still have the original movie in addition with this remake with a different take on the story, which will make the original fans happy. Something I have also read about with this movie is that many wanted Josh Gad to play Phil, but he really wanted Danny DeVito to play Phil instead. Yeah, when it comes to the casting thing, honestly, this is the same old thing that we have seen again and again and again, where on one hand, you're going to get a whole lot of fans that want some of the original actors to come back, which in this case, yes, a lot of people really want Danny DeVito or James Woods to return to their respective roles. And then there are some people that want to do their own dream casting. Like, I think I saw... well, let's see. I saw there was someone who said that they wanted Dwayne Johnson to play Hercules or something like that. And there's a lot of people really petitioning that ever since that family sing-along thing, they desperately want to have Ariana Grande to play as Meg because she did a really good interpretation of I Won't Say I'm in Love. So, of course, you're going to see all those people try to make their own dream casting and stuff like that. But you got to keep in mind, while people are really excited about this movie, we're still, like, a really long way until this thing would officially get made. Like, keep in mind, this is not going to happen for another, like, 3 or 4 years. So, honestly, like, we don't know what the casting is going to be. There's no confirmation on anything yet. So, honestly, that's just something we just have to go and wait and see. Let's see now. I'll admit that these people are onto something. There is no need to be shot-per-shot faithful. The least you could do is be faithful, but still be original. I could see what Disney is going for, a bit like the Mulan remake, and I figured if they would land in something more serious, I would recommend removing a bit of comedy. And honestly, if there is one that they could be definitely more open to go and try to be a bit more original, it would definitely be Hercules, where I know we already talked about the element about the original myth and stuff like that, but then again, there are ways that you can actually still stay true to the original, still stay true to the animated film, but also have a little bit of the original story as well, where you can add in the 12, what is it, the 12 trials of Hercules or something like that, the 12, I know it's like the 12 trials or the 12 things of Hercules. You could correct me in the comments if you can, but the thing is that, like, honestly, the best case scenario would be to do something like The Jungle Book, where yes, it does stay faithful to the animated film, but at the same time, it does stay true as well to, or be a little bit more faithful than what Walt Disney did to the original book. So maybe they could go and do something like that. So that could be the best case scenario with what could happen with this Hercules remake. Let's see now. I'm getting very tired of all these live-action remakes, though I simply choose to ignore them. I remember not too long ago when I was a senior in high school, where I would kill to do a live-action Hunchback or Atlantis, but the more I think about it, the more I realize how pointless it is. I mean, I hate to admit it here because he's a far-right Trump supporter, but they can never top James Woods as Hades, even if they cast Jeff Goldblum. Well, yeah, I mean, that is true. Like, despite James Woods literally being a real-life Hades right now, like, you cannot deny that his performance in the Hercules movie was very charming, and that's why he ends up becoming one of the most fan-favorite and one of the most beloved villains ever. I mean, like, it's just... it's just a really fun and enjoyable performance. Like, that's probably the best thing that James Woods has ever done, is perform as Hades. And the thing is, I will say though that it is not impossible that someone else can come in and do their own interpretation of Hades that can be equally as fun as James Woods. A great example is that there was recently a stage adaptation that was not off Broadway, but it was like somewhere in New York, like not on Broadway, not off Broadway, but it was like, it was almost like part Disney working on it, part public theater working on it, that did a stage adaptation of Hercules, where even Alan Menken came in to be involved with it. And Roger Bart, who was the singing voice of Herc during Go the Distance, he actually performed as Hades. So I believe there is a possibility that maybe they could actually find someone that can be as enjoyable as James Woods to perform as Hades. You never know. Like, the thing is, I know it's hard to think about someone who can top his performance, but it is not impossible. Let's see, what else do we got here? I'll probably just read one more comment before we jump on to the next story. I think this is going to be a great idea, 30% exactly like the original, and 70% similar to the movie Clash of the Titans. Hopefully this movie gets the light-hearted 10 and up, PG-13, and I know this is going to be way better than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Hercules movie in 2014, so no worries there. So, who would you cast in this movie if you could cast anybody? Don't ask me about any casting. I ain't gonna play that game. But yeah. Honestly, I will say, though, that if it is going to be a little bit more like Clash of the Titans, then please make it more like the 1980 movie with Ray Harryhausen. Please make it more like that film, because if you're gonna go more in the direction of the 2010 movie, the 2010 remake of Clash of the Titans, then holy crap, you're just on your way of making hot garbage, because that I still stand by that the 2010 Clash of the Titans remake is hot garbage. It is pure frickin' crap, and I hate it. Holy crap. There are a few remakes that I hate more than Clash of the Titans. Like, some people may have a grudge against stuff like the Lion King remake, or like the Beauty and the Beast remake, or whatever Disney live action remake there would be, but at least they don't flat out insult their fans as much as that Clash of the Titans remake. Holy crap. Now, with our next story, we are going to go and discuss about an actual full-on animated project. And with this one right over here, we're actually going to be going into streaming services. And considering that now we are more at the heat of the moment of the streaming wars, where now more and more of them are going to be coming out, since we already do have some big competition with stuff like Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon, and many more. And then we also have HBO Max and Peacock that are just right around the corner. Of course, that would mean that we're going to see a lot more content in those platforms. But considering that these platforms want to be, or some of these platforms want to be a little bit like Netflix, then of course that would mean there is a possibility we will see more adult animated content. And in this case here, it looks like HBO Max is going to be stocking up with Santa Inc. Yes, HBO Max has revealed that they have picked up a little mini-series per se, or just an animated series. It's a short one that only has 8 episodes, but apparently it's going to be called Santa Inc. This is actually brought to us by writer, showrunner, and executive producer Alexandra Rushfield, and it will actually star Sarah Silverman and Seth Rogen. Now, to read you a little bit from my source here on Variety about what this show is about, it says here, the 8-episode series follows Candy Smalls, played by Sarah Silverman, insert Vanellope joke here, the highest-ranking female elf in the North Pole. When the successor to Santa Claus, played by Seth Rogen, is poached by Amazon on Christmas Eve, Candy goes for her ultimate dream to become the first woman Santa Claus in the history of Christmas. And to read a little bit, to read a couple of quotes, actually, one of them is going to be the Executive Vice President of Original Comedy and Animation at HBO Max, Susanna Matkos, and she commented about the project, I have long dreamed of a taking of a beloved holiday tradition and adding a feminist agenda and some R-rated comedy, and when I read the script from Ali with Seth and Sarah attached to voice, I knew it was a perfect fit for us at Max. Okay, I know that you love all these elements, like you love the feminism aspect, you love R-rated comedies, and you love holiday traditions and stuff like that, but I feel like that would be a little too specific of a dream to combine all these things together. You know, and I mean, like, yeah, I'm definitely for, you know, honestly, I'm definitely forward, you know, I support the idea of making, like, a Christmas themed thing that would have some feminism onto it, or, like, make it an R-rated comedy or something like that. But I feel like in this case here, it's like, you're going a little too specific onto that one. Anyways, we also got another quote, which in this one is actually going to be from Lionsgate's head of scripted development, Scott Herbst. And by the way, that's another thing I want to mention about this project with Santa Inc., is that this will actually be brought to us by Lionsgate, considering that both Sarah Silverman and Seth Rogen are going to be executive producers. And in the case of Seth Rogen, his company, Point Grey, is also attached to this project, which Point Grey already has a major deal with Lionsgate, which that is how Lionsgate is attached to the project. It's kind of like a chain reaction thing where somehow that's how we ended up with Lionsgate being attached to this. And with Lionsgate, with Scott Herbst, he says here, Sarah and Seth are the perfect comedy duo for this empowering and very funny animated series, shepherded by the hysterical Alexandra Rushfield. We look forward to diving into the world of animation with our Point Grey partners and to bring the holidays to HBO Max in a totally unexpected and fresh way. And by the way, one more thing I want to do is that there might be some people out there who might not be familiar with Alexandra Rushfield, and I just want to give a little bit more context. So to give her a little bit, to give her more more of context, to give her a little bit of a background so that you could be a little bit more familiar with her. It says that Rushfeld most recently developed Shrill for Hulu, which that show recently is getting renewed for a third season. Rushfeld also served as showrunner on that series. Her other credits include Parks and Recreation, Love, Friends from College, and Underclared, with the last of those serving as an early TV series for Rogen. So that's the big thing, is that we got Alexandra Rushfeld, who is a prominent show creator and has worked on several different TV shows, and she has a new idea for an animated series called Santa Inc., in which Sarah Silverman and Seth Rogen are going to star. And honestly, I am not surprised that something like this would happen, and I think this is honestly going to be something that we do have to expect coming from streaming services nowadays, because as you guys know, right now Netflix is currently like the king of adult animation. Like, some people could debate that technically there is also Adult Swim as well, especially that they have Rick and Morty and stuff like that, but it is more Netflix right now with their catalog of adult animated series, and especially the fact that they did have BoJack Horseman. So from there, what we should be expecting from these upcoming streaming services, not from Disney Plus at all, but from some of the other ones like Hulu, from HBO Max, and from Peacock, and probably from Amazon as well, they're really going to jump into the adult animation market, where that has grown a newfound popularity, and there is going to be a bit of a significant growth where we're going to see a whole bunch of them. In fact, I do believe with HBO Max, they're also going to be, like, HBO Max really is going to be a massive competitor when it comes to adult animation. Not just, like, trying to create new ones as well, but also they did have their hands on a lot of like some of the more popular ones. Keep in mind, HBO Max are the ones who do own Rick and Morty. They have freaking Adult Swim. They got that whole catalog that they could use. And on top of that, they actually spent $500 million in order to have the whole South Park series onto HBO Max. So they really want to go and emphasize adult animation. Now, they will have animation for families, of course, with Cartoon Network, with the Looney Tunes cartoons, and with with several different kids series as well. But the main thing that they really want to the main thing that they really want to go and emphasize is that they can also be a massive supplier of adult animation. And from there, they also want to go and have some more, have their own original series as well. Like, considering they already got their existing catalog, now they want to go and have their catalog, they want to have some original stuff that they could offer as well. And I guess they want to go with a little bit of a holiday special with Santa Inc. Now, before I stated that I thought this was a mini-series, but then again, there is a possibility that they would have like a new series every Christmas or something like that. Like every December, they would go and release something new, depending on how successful this one would end up becoming. But considering that we are dealing with a more holiday-based thing, it is actually pretty interesting, and it's not every day that we would actually see a more holiday-centered adult animated series. Of course, like, these shows would go and make their own holiday specials, or they would have their own holiday episodes, but never a full series in itself that's completely dedicated to a holiday like Christmas. So honestly, for me, I don't really know if I have a whole lot to go and comment, because I will confess I'm not all that familiar with Rushfeld's work. I know that I don't doubt her at all. I mean, like, she has definitely provided herself with a very successful television career, especially with shows like Shrill, and the fact that she did actually work on shows like Parks and Recreation. Like, I'm sure she is definitely well established, she is definitely successful, and she definitely knows what she's doing when it comes to making TV shows. But honestly, in terms of my opinions on her work, honestly, I cannot really say. I'm really not all that familiar. So regarding if this could work, honestly, it's more something that we will have to wait and see. But in terms of the concept that we do have, I mean, yeah, we do know that they do have some very successful actors that, you know, that like they are very good on their own. Like, these are definitely actors that do know what they're doing, like very professional, and especially like they did have experience with some strong voiceover work in animated project, like Sarah Silverman with Vanellope, and also with Seth Rogen with his catalog of animated projects that he voiced. And it is kind of funny with Sarah Silverman. I think it actually is pretty strong casting over there. Casting her as an elf, per se, already with her voice. Since it is more, well, I wouldn't say nasally, but she really does have a bit of that distinct voice where it's a little more high-pitched than usual, which is how she even managed to get away with voicing a character like Vanellope. And thinking about going that transition from Vanellope going into a Christmas elf literally named Candy, I think it just fits a little too well, where, like, in a way you could say the jokes kind of write themselves with casting Sarah Silverman. But then again, it does work. I think it would actually work, and especially with the idea that they would discuss that this isn't just going to be this raunchy R-rated comedy or something like that. Like, like, one thing that does give me some optimism is that this is definitely going to be a series that will have commentary. This is going to be a series that will have something to say. And if Susanna is correct, then there is going to be a subject of feminism, about women taking on roles that are usually occupied by men. And in this case over here, it's about women. It's about a woman taking on the possibility of playing the role of Santa Claus. Now, I know technically you could say this is not necessarily the first time that we've heard of this kind of concept. I think Disney Plus actually did release, I think they did release a movie. I'm trying to remember what it is. It's like Claus or something. I forgot what it is. You know, you guys know what I'm talking about, though. It's like, it's a Disney Plus original movie. It had Anna Kendrick, and it also had Bill Hader, and it was, yeah, Noelle. Thank you. It was Noelle. The thing, yeah, and the thing is that with Noelle, it's kind of a similar concept about the possibility of having a woman Santa Claus. But honestly, like, that really did not work out well. And in the case of Noelle, like, after Christmas, nobody really wanted to go and talk about it. It ended up being crap. But honestly, with the fact that it is an R-rated comedy, I feel like, honestly, with that aspect to bring in the social commentary to it, like, I feel like that is a great idea, because, like, at that point, there's nothing holding them back. Like, this is when the gloves are off, and they're pretty much going to go and tell it pretty much go and tell it like it is, about the subject of women in the workforce, and that they can indeed take on the position of what's usually associated of what a man can do. And sometimes, who knows, maybe some women can actually do it better. I mean, I know there are some things that there are a lot of women out there that could probably do some things that are better than what I can ever do. Like, for example, like, when it comes to, like, business, or like some handiwork or stuff like that. Like, I know those are roles that are usually associated with men, but I know there are definitely a lot of women out there that could probably do it much better than I can. Now, this is not to say that I am not a man. I know that, for me, I am a man. I know that for a fact. But still, like, it pretty much is going, like, if it knows what it's doing, then I could definitely trust it to go and discuss about the subject of feminism and also gender roles in the working class. So hopefully, if it is smart enough, then it could probably do it well. And especially with the involvement of Seth Rogen and Point Grey, if they can handle it like they did with Sausage Party, then I think, honestly, it could be in good hands. So Who knows? Maybe this could actually work out well, but honestly, we'll have to wait and see. And considering that this is going to be a holiday-based animated series, then I'm pretty much expecting that this is going to be coming out on HBO Max sometime either in November or December. We'll just have to wait and see. If not, the end of next year. So yeah, now we got that out of the way, I would like to go into the chat wall and I would like to ask you all, what do you think about Santa Inc.? Do you think that is a show that you would be interested to go and check out? Are you guys a little bit doubtful on that? Let me know what you all think about this show. Alright, now let's see. This seems like a decent enough idea. I do like both Silverman and Rogen. I don't know why the fridge why do I say Roger? Anyway, sorry about that. And the idea of Santa being threatened by Amazon is really inspired. But there is one question I have in mind. Didn't Disney Plus also do a film about the female Santa with subtle commentary on delivery service? We just covered that, dude. I already just mentioned about the thing with Noelle. Okay, anyways. Now, let's see now. Wow, it really seems like HBO Max will be a legit competition against stuff like Hulu and Netflix in terms of adult animation. I'm curious to see how this show will turn out. Definitely a major deal for animation fans since Netflix got serious with animation. Speaking of animation on HBO Max, have you seen the first short of those new Looney Tunes cartoons, Pest Coaster? Yes, I have actually, and holy crap, the Looney Tunes are gonna have a comeback, let me tell ya. Like, honestly, there are even things that I would watch. Like, there are some gags that I felt like they would be way too obvious and way too predictable, but because of the execution, they're not. That, like, it still has that element of surprise from the classics, and if you can make something what seems predictable unpredictable, then I think you're on the right track to do something right. Anyways, let's see now. An AT&T and Warner Media streaming service purchased an adult animated Christmas series that stars Frank and Vanellope, produced by the Sausage Party production company. Now, I'm sold on that. Well, okay, if that works for you. Anyways, I don't really have high hopes for this, as it seems like it's just a mature version of the Disney Plus movie Noelle, where instead of Anna Kendrick is Sarah Silverman as the first female Santa. Plus the fact that there will be a side plot where the delivery service could take over Christmas, though I do hope it's better executed than that movie. Yeah, and that's one thing that I wanted to mention because, like I've already said that when it comes to Noelle, not many people really want to talk about it, and it seems like one of the weaker additions to Disney Plus, but honestly, considering that the big difference though is that it is going to be an R-rated comedy, so unlike Noelle, this one is not going to hold back on any of the comedy, on any of the jokes that it wants to do, and especially on any of the commentary. You'll see that sometimes it does happen that R-rated comedies or something that is more mature can deliver a message much better than family content, mainly because there's nothing for them to really go and hold back and really lay the message out front to its audience. Let's see now. How many of us are going to bet that Seth and Sarah are going to use their Mantis and Vanellope voices for these characters? Okay, in all seriousness, I think this is a good idea, having a cartoon premise about Christmas entirely for adults. When was the last time that has ever happened, aside from some adult cartoons with episodes about Christmas like South Park and Simpsons? Maybe it has happened in the past, but I think it's going to be great. What I am worried about is the misogynistic backlash. Oh, there is going to be. Like, there probably is going to be a bit, but I mean, unfortunately in this day and age, especially on the internet, like whenever you add even just a tiny element of feminism or you have something that stars a woman, there is going to be backlash from the far right and the anti-SJWs because of their allergies against women and feminism. Like, unfortunately, it is going to happen, but the thing is that considering it is from HBO Max, I don't know if it is going to be really significant or if it's really going to be big, but yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'm expecting there's going to be a little bit, like, there will be some trolls and troublemakers that want to give this movie crap, but it could be easily brushed off. I mean, those kinds of people are deplorables anyways. It doesn't matter what they say. Anyways, I'll go and read one more comment before we're going to jump onto the next story. Let's see. I don't know what to say about this news. I like Seth Rogen, but Silverman is a hit and miss for me. But I recently thought of something that I'm surprised HBO Max isn't doing. And that's why aren't they doing a series set in the Harry Potter franchise, which is in desperate need of some goodwill after Crimes of Grindelwald. Looking forward to Boondocks revival and the Dune prequel, though. That is actually a very good question, and I don't know. I guess it's mainly because, it depends on what J.K. Rowling wants. And honestly, we don't know what the fridge wants. I think she's at the point she wants to take a break from movies, and she wants to continue writing down insane stuff on Pottermore. I think that could probably be the case. I don't know. I mean, you are right, though. You are absolutely right, where it does seem like an obvious idea, but who knows with what they want to do. Okay, so for my next story, what I want to talk about is something that I have mentioned earlier. Well, in previous episodes, actually, and that is going to be regarding movies that would be released on video on demand. Now, by the way, one thing that I would like to say that is actually very surprising is that with this episode in particular, for the first time in several weeks, I am finally doing an episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast without a story involving Trolls World Tour. Finally, it's about time that I can move on from that movie. But in all seriousness, going back to what I was talking about with video-on-demand movies, right now, we are at a point that so far it has been proven that Trolls World Tour has been very successful, and Scoob is just around the corner releasing their movie exclusively on video-on-demand. But I mentioned that if there would be any more after that, then studios would have to really get out of the way to take out their animated feature that did have a specific release date for theaters, to take it out from there and have it be released on video on demand. Like, they would really have to go and get that out of their way. But in this case, though, it seems actually pretty surprising, or at least I feel surprised, of the fact that maybe this could happen. There's nothing confirmed, but that is not an impossibility. And the reason why I say that is because of what's happening at Paramount. Apparently, Viacom CBS CEO Bob Bakish, which by the way, Viacom CBS is the parent company of Paramount Pictures. Bob Bakish, he was pretty much talking with reporters and stuff like that, and he was pretty much discussing about the first quarter earnings, and he mentioned at one point regarding SpongeBob, Sponge Out of Water, and if there is even going to be a chance that it would actually be released in theaters on August 7th. And he mentioned that there is a possibility that it might not. As he states, reading from my source here on the wrap, it says here, it's too far out to call if that's definitely going to be released or if it's definitely not going to be released. We hope it will be released, but we will continue to look at and make the right decision in terms of the return on those assets because we've got great films. And following afterwards, the rest of this article, it pretty much discusses about how he does not regret his decision any of the stuff that he has done with delaying movies. He doesn't regret delaying the movies that were supposed to be either out now or during the summer and put them on a later date. Like, he felt like he did the right decision to take something like A Quiet Place Part 2 and put it in September instead of keeping its March release date. Or like one big movie that they were supposed to be released, that they were supposed to release in the summer, Top Gun Maverick, that was supposed to be out in June, but they decided to delay that onto Christmas. I think on December 23rd, I believe? Yes, on December 23rd. And Bob Bakish was pretty much saying that he doesn't regret that decision. He felt like he did a smart move and that it is the necessary step in order to respect movie theaters and to go and delay the movies so that they don't get affected by the pandemic, which honestly, I actually do agree with him. I think it actually is the right thing to do. And in the case of SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water, like, yeah, that's another movie that went through the same thing. Originally, it was supposed to be coming out on May 22nd. It was literally supposed to be released a few weeks from now. But the thing is that because of all this, Paramount decided to go and delay SpongeBob Sponge on the... Did I say Sponge Out of Water? They decided to go and delay Sponge on the Run to have it be released on July 31st, and then afterwards decided to delay it a week later on August 7th. But now, it seems that we are at a point where he mentioned that there is a possibility it might not make it on that date. Now, with this thing, with this entire situation, one thing that is important to go and keep in mind is that what Bob Bakish said is that it's honestly very, very vague. Like, honestly, even reading it, it seems so confusing. It's like, it's like, well, we want it to be released, but we're not sure if it's going to be released. We would like it to have it be released, but we don't know if it's going to be released. It's like he's repeating the same word again and again and again, where it kind of makes it a little bit confusing. But so far, it seems that he's just in a position where he is unsure if Sponge on the Run is actually going to be released on August 7th in theaters. And that is mainly because of the current situation with the pandemic, especially in North America, or more especially in the United States, where it's pretty much a hellhole. It's really, let's be honest, it's going bad in that country. Like, holy crap, it's not even funny anymore. But the thing is that, like, even though in the United States it's going so badly where, like, they haven't even reached their peak, and especially with all these idiots going on the streets, forcing people to go and reopen, like, the economy and reopen things so that they could force their way to get back to normal, like, that pretty much means that they're just gonna prolong the pandemic. And like right now, the country has not even reached its peak yet. Like, it's still climbing up with no signs of, like, going down, or that the curve looks like is actually hitting a curve in the first place. Like, you'll see very soon, it looks like New York isn't going to be the state capital or the state epicenter of the United States. You'll see. But anyways, going back into this though, the thing is that even though he is pretty vague, there is no confirmation regarding if the case would be that Sponge on the Run would not be coming out on August 7th, then we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know if this would mean that they're going to go and do another full-on delay where Sponge on the Run would probably be released in December, or if they would want to go and try to follow the same footsteps as Scoob and Trolls World Tour and have it be released on video on demand. We don't fully know what's going to be happening with that film in particular. We don't know what their plans are. But honestly, I feel like at this point, either way would not be surprising whatsoever. I mean, with Paramount so far, it does look like they do have a good relationship with movie theaters, and it doesn't seem like they want to have the same kind of trouble as Universal face, where Universal is faced with bans from like Cineworld and AMC and all that kind of stuff. So there is a possibility they still want to respect movie theaters, and maybe they just want to go and delay it again. Now, at this point, it does seem pretty crowded when you look at the end of the year, where you see like all the movies that are going to be coming out like in the fall or in the start of winter and stuff like that. So it's hard to tell that if Sponge on the Run would not be released on August 7th, but then at that point it's going to be really difficult to know when they're actually going to go and release their movie. I know that they have a lot of films already set in September, so that could be out of the option. Maybe there's a chance they could go and put it out in October. That could be an option, even though they could potentially face competition with Sony's Connected. Maybe they could go and take the risk. I mean, after all, they were ready to go and compete against Scoob. So there could be that, or like definitely not November, of course, because there's way too many movies there. But then you also have December, which that could also be an option. So I think if it's not going to be August 7th, then it's going to be one of those three, or it's going to be one of those two, actually. It's either going to be, it would have either a new October release date, or it would have a new December release date. It could be either or. But then there is also the other option, the chance that they would actually get out of their way of plucking out a Sponge on the Run from its August 7th release, and they would go and just release it on video on demand. That could also be an option. However, with this one, that would be like a major if. That would highly depend on how things are going in North America with this pandemic. As Bakish says, it's way too early to tell. And the thing is with this pandemic, as I've said many times before, we have to take it one step at a time. We cannot fully predict the future, so we don't know when things can truly happen. So, we would have to only guess that if the worst case scenario would be that North America is still in a hellscape with the pandemic, and if by July, and I'm gonna say that, not in June, but if in July it's still going really bad with this pandemic, where apparently the curve seems way too out of reach, then I think there is a strong possibility that at that point they know that they're not really going to open movie theaters in August, so they're just going to pluck out Sponge on the Run, and they're going to go and release it. They're going to go and release it digitally, just like that. But that, for now, that is only a big if. Like he said, we don't fully know, but what we do know right now is that doing something with Sponge on the Run is not out of the option. There is a possibility that maybe if things are not well by July or even by August, then maybe they will do something with SpongeBob and not have it be released in theaters, and instead just go and have it be out digitally. Just do the same thing as with Scoob and as with Trolls World Tour, considering that they have found some great success, and considering that there are plenty of places that are still not open yet, and I'm sure there would still be plenty of states who would refuse to go and open their shops and stuff like that for safety purposes, then at that point, it would not be surprising. And of course, it's going to be animated films that are going to be the true testing grounds for that. Especially now that we've seen that there is some legitimate proof that it can actually work out, especially with what happened with Trolls World Tour. So in the case with Sponge on the Run, right now, it's more something to keep an eye on. And I think overall that is the thing that we have to do now with Sponge on the Run, is just keep an eye out on what it's going to do, because now it seems that the possibilities of its future can be multiple options. There is still a chance that it could actually be released on August 7th as planned. it could be a possibility that it could be delayed even further, where it could end up getting releasing, it could end up getting released only by the end of the year. That's another option. Or it could just end up getting released on digital, like on video on demand, where it is going to go through the same setup, where it is going to be like this rental where you have to pay $20 to go and rent it, or maybe go even further and be like Warner Brothers and also have a $25 purchase fee. Like, all those options are definitely viable, but we just got to wait. Like I said, the best thing we can do now with this is just that we got to wait and see. We don't know what's going to be happening. We don't know where Paramount wants to go with this, but we do know that they got options, and they're not sticking to only one. So I know it's a small story to discuss, but that's kind of the main thing to go and highlight, to give you guys a little bit of an alert with the current scenario with Sponge on the Run. So I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you guys, what do you think is going to happen with the SpongeBob sequel? What do you think is going to happen with Sponge on the Run? If you can make your prediction, what do you think is going to happen with it? Do you think it's going to be out in theaters as planned? Do you think it's going to be delayed? Or do you think it's going to end up on video on demand? Let me know what you think. Okay, let's see now. I'm so nervous about this. If that movie will not be released theatrically, maybe this will be streaming to Netflix, just like it did with The Lovebirds, which will be coming out May 22nd, or this is going to be video on demand, just like Trolls World Tour and Scoob. And by the way, I got a Funko Pop of Sponge on the Run for my 18th birthday. Oh, that's nice. But honestly, I'm just gonna say right now that I don't think there is a way that I really, like, if the case would be that they would have to go digital, then I really do not believe that this movie is going to be coming out on a streaming service. There's no way that Paramount is going to let this be released just like on Netflix or something like that. I really do believe that if the option would be to just follow the same footsteps, because Trolls World Tour technically has kind of started a tradition, because like Trolls World Tour did premium rentals, and now we got Scoob trying to do the same thing. So honestly, there's a strong chance that Sponge on the Run, if it does get released digitally, then it's just going to do the same thing with the $20 rental fee and maybe even get a $25 purchase. So that's one thing that I am confident to say on that regard. Let's see. I really hope Sponge on the Run is still released in theaters. I'd recommend a delay to December because those visuals are theater worthy. Also, the last SpongeBob movie was very successful and it is a profitable franchise. Digital isn't a smart idea. Are you sure about that? Are you sure digital ain't a smart idea? Because, have you seen what happened with Trolls World Tour? It might disagree with you. I mean, this is why we're having this entire discussion in the first place. This is why Bob Bakish is opening up to the idea that maybe they could release Sponge on the Run on digital, because it actually went extremely well with Trolls World Tour. And I mean, that's just a sequel to Trolls. There was a strong chance that it would have flopped at the box office in the first place. So if it went really well with Trolls World Tour, then chances are it could also go very well for Sponge on the Run if it decides to go digital. Let's see now. I just hope we at least can see it soon as it comes. This movie is my most anticipated film of the year, as much as the second one was, even to say that this film was special. I just don't know what to think for even SpongeBob to be in, especially for one question, why we don't have a trailer or marketing. Wait, what? What do you mean no trailer or anything like that? We've had trailers. We haven't got any updated trailers to say that it's going to be coming out on August 7th, but then again, we are still a little bit far. So for now, I guess, we just have to wait. Like they've already spent, like, the thing is that they've already spent a good amount of their money on the marketing anyways. So like, let's just give it a little bit of time before they would resume the marketing to present Sponge on the Run when the release date would come out. Let's see now. I honestly hope Sponge on the Run doesn't go straight to video on demand, not just because it's pretty much pointless since it already has 2 delays, but because Paramount Animation could really use the money after the tanking of both Sherlock Gnomes and Wonder Park. But regardless of the future, here's hoping that its opening goes better than the opening of Spinge Binge Me Millionth Dollar of Spinge. Of Spinge Binge Me. Okay, I was like confused for a second. I was like, what the fridge is a Spinge Binge? I was like, oh, okay. Okay, now I gotcha. Okay. Okay, I'm a little, okay, now I'm getting the idea. I was like, okay, now I know what Spinge Binge is. Okay. Wow, you caught me off guard, I will admit. Okay, anyways, let's see now. I wouldn't mind if this is releasing on video on demand. That it actually makes sense. I wasn't too thrilled with the first trailer of the film, so this makes sense on being next in line with a movie with a digital release. Also, I know this is unrelated, but do you think that the live-action Rugrats film would be on Netflix, or would it still be in theaters after being pulled from its January 2021 release? Oh yeah. That's a thing. Oh, I don't want to think about it. I don't know. I'm still not cool with the idea of this live action Rugrats. I don't know, man. It's just, I don't want to think about it. It's just, I am a Rugrats fan myself. Like, I remember I used to watch it a lot as a kid. But I don't know, the idea of like the live action Rugrats thing is just, I'm not looking forward to that. No, I don't know. I'd rather not think about it. Sorry, but yeah, it's just I don't know if I want it to be released, to be honest. Okay, I'll read one more and then we're gonna jump onto the grand finale. Anyways. Please, Paramount, do not release this in video on demand. I really want to see this film in theaters. I have to wait this film for 5 stinking years. Just delay it or keep it in a same release date if the pandemic died down. If the film goes in video on demand, then things are going to be crazy. Yeah, okay. Well, I understand a lot of people are not in favor of video on demand, but honestly, like I said, like, we're at a point where it's too early to call. There's no confirmation of where it's going to be coming out, so we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, so with that said, it is now time that we are going to jump onto the grand finale. And for this one, we actually have a very special story that I have for you. A little bit of a bonus miscellaneous, actually, considering that we're going to talk about a very special subject, one that I really do enjoy myself, and that is actually going to be regarding theme parks. And the thing is with theme parks, I will say, regardless if you are a fan of the Disney parks or not, I feel like this is something that everyone should go and keep an eye on. Because this is not just going to reflect on the future of the Disney parks and theme parks in general when they would go and reopen during this pandemic, but honestly, this could really dictate how things are going to be in the future in general. So with that said, let us now... Wait a minute. I just noticed that there's one person in the comments that it just write down, boo. Boo for what, man? Like, what the fridge? It just seems like a random comment to just point out. It's like, what the fridge are you talking about? Anyways, now, to go back to what I'm talking about, yes, apparently I will go... Oh, boob. Oh, that's a much nicer word, boob. Okay, thank you. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Let's go ahead and discuss about Shanghai Disneyland. Yes, it is official. Disney has officially announced that they are going to reopen Shanghai Disneyland on May 11th. Oh, and by the way, one thing I just want to mention, that if you guys are watching this on YouTube right now, then that pretty much means that, well, Shanghai Disneyland is reopened today. It's already open right now, so people are already going onto Shanghai Disneyland. Yes, Disney has officially decided that Shanghai Disneyland will be the first among the Disney parks to reopen ever since it closed down during the pandemic on May 11th. Now, I just want to say immediately that we do not have any confirmation regarding any of the other Disney parks and when they're going to be reopened. I know some people will point out that technically Disney Springs is going to be reopening in June or something like that, but that's not necessarily one of the Disney parks per se. That's just like a shopping district, so that doesn't necessarily count. We're talking about like a full-blown theme park and stuff like that, like a full-blown theme park and a full-blown resort. So with that said, that's why the first one is going to be Shanghai Disneyland. And I will say that even though we don't really have a confirmation on the other parks, I will say that technically, since it does count in the area of China, I wouldn't be surprised if Hong Kong Disneyland is going to follow suit soon afterwards. And this is going to be this is apparently a decision that has been announced by the CEO, or at least upcoming CEO, after Bob Iger decides to step down, Bob Chapek, in which, to read you a little bit of a quote here from what Chapek said, he stated, "We know how much our guests have been looking forward to returning to Shanghai Disneyland, and our cast is excited to begin welcoming them back. As the park reopens with significantly enhanced health and safety measures, our guests will find Shanghai Disneyland as magical and memorable as ever." But wait a minute, hold on a sec. Something doesn't seem right here. What do you mean by significantly enhanced health and safety measures? Well, that's the thing, is that yes, technically Shanghai Disneyland will reopen, but there is a very serious catch. And this catch actually comes with 5 precautions, 5 new rules that are going to be added in order to make sure that the health and safety of guests are going to be safe and are going to be protected. So, to read them here from my source on Variety, it states, new rule number 1. Limited and pulse attendance with advancement reservations and entry systems. Visitors will only be able to buy admission tickets for selected dates, and annual pass holders will have to make reservations in advance. Rule number 2. Controlled guest density. Lines will be spaced out and ride vehicles will be loaded to meet social distancing guidelines. Rule number 3. Implementing required government health and prevention procedures. Disney will screen visitors' temperatures and implement the use of government-issued Shanghai Health QR code, which is a contact tracing and early detection system used in China. Rule number 4. Increase sanitization and disinfection measures. The park will make hand sanitizers available at the start of each entrance and exit to rides and attractions. Disney said high-touch locations such as ride vehicles, handlebars, queue railings, and turnstiles will have increased sanitization. And finally, rule number 5, training for cast members. Disneyland workers will receive training on contactless guest interactions, cleaning and social distancing, and will receive additional protective equipment, including masks. So, in a way, yes, Shanghai Disneyland is going to be reopened, but it will come with a major catch. Where it will follow some major guidelines in order to protect guests from COVID-19. Now, one thing I would like to go and mention regarding all of this is the fact of the current state of China with this whole pandemic. And the thing is that right now the country is mostly under control with COVID-19. Now, this is not to say that the entire virus is entirely gone and things can get back to normal immediately in China, but they are in a position where they are more comfortable and that things can slowly get back to normal for them, where the social distancing rules can be a little bit more at ease. It's not as restrictive as it used to be, where they can allow people to get out of their homes. Like, they no longer have to be, like, in very restrictive quarantine. That's kind of the main thing I wanted to go and emphasize with this. So, with that said, with this happening right now, with Shanghai Disneyland reopening with all these guidelines, so of course things are going to be a little bit different right now, but I think really, like, this is pretty much both a test for both China and Disney to see how things are going to be in control with this virus. Where for China, this is to go and test out what happens when they would go and reopen major public areas like Disneyland. You know, places where social distancing was really not in mind, where usually it's common to see people, they would get easily crowded and they would be like full on shoulder to shoulder as they would go and, you know, check out like what's happening around the area, rather it be going into a restaurant or interacting with, interacting with characters or going into rides and all that kind of stuff. Or they would all get together and they would all sit down, or they would just stand and wait and check out either the parade, or they would check out the fireworks show at night. It's not an ideal place for social distancing, but with these new measurements, it's going to be a test to see how the people of China will respond to this. And so far, it seems that people are extremely excited for the reopening of Shanghai Disneyland, considering that ticket sales have pretty much exploded. Like, I believe it was said to be in a matter of minutes, where apparently all the tickets have been sold out, or I think either in a matter of hours or minutes. You know what? I think I do have the article. If I just back out for a second, yeah, apparently, like, they just sold out stupidly quick, if I may recall. It even says that, where does this say? Well, okay, yeah, it says that, just to read a little bit here, that tickets for Shanghai Disneyland sold quickly on Friday, ahead of its iconic theme park schedule reopening on Monday. The park was shut down late January by the coronavirus outbreak. It will be allowed to operate at 30% visitor capacity from May 11th. The park's own website showed full-day visitor tickets, which retail at, for American currency, it's $56.35 for adults, to be quickly unavailable for Monday and Tuesday, the first 2 days of operation. So that's kind of the big thing, is that they just sold out quickly. Like, you know, people are really excited, but then again, like, at least with Disney, like, they are keeping things under control so that the capacity would be at 30% than what it would usually be, or like 30% of the maximum capacity, and hope that people can still respect social distancing guidelines and, you know, keeping their hands clean with all the hand sanitizers everywhere to make sure that the pandemic doesn't spread. Because that's kind of the worst case scenario with all this, is that because of the reopening of Shanghai Disneyland, because people are so excited to go back to it, that it would end up causing a second wave either in Shanghai or more consequentially in the whole country. And that's something that it's pretty much the last thing that anybody would want. And two, for the case of Disney, this is pretty much the ultimate test of how things are going to be when they would go and fully reopen the parks. This is going to be a test to find out how things are when they would go and reopen their other places, you know, like Tokyo Disneyland or Disneyland Paris, or like Disneyland and Walt Disney World, and also Hong Kong Disneyland as well. This is to test out to see if these rules are going to work out well, if all these extra guidelines will actually help out to both make good business for the parks while at the same time keep the virus in control, that this will not go and cause another wave to go and happen in that region. So this is going to be a test to see how people are going to react, because as you guys probably know, there are tons of people around the world that are really angsty to really get things back to normal, that they want to get out of the house and to go enjoy activities that are outside of their homes, like go to Disneyland and stuff like that. So this bit of news for the people of Shanghai, it's like the most exciting thing that they have heard all week. So that's pretty much why you saw that the ticket sales, like, they were disappearing quickly. Like, of course they would go and like just sell out in minutes for the first 2 days. Like, it really is a case right now that you got to grab them while they're hot. But while they are excited to go back to Disneyland, they want to test if also they can go and respect these guidelines, to always go and wash their hands, to keep their hands clean at all times, to use as much desanitizers as possible, to go and also respect social distancing guidelines, that everyone can keep 6 feet apart from each other. Like, that's going to be the big test to see if that can happen, if they, and also, like, as a little bit of a bonus, if people can come in and wear masks at the same time, and to also test out if, like, their gadgets, in order to see if, like, if people are okay, if they're not sick beforehand, if it's safe for them to go and enter in. Like, this is all a major test to see if, not just for the Disney parks, but for all the major theme parks like Universal in general, to see if this is going to be the new standard of how they're going to bring in guests into their theme parks, to see if they are healthy enough and if they are good enough to go in and see if, like, they're not going to cause any trouble, or if they're not carrying any viruses of their own while going into Disneyland. So that's the big thing that is really a big test for Disney right now. And one thing, again, this is going to be something that I will repeat a few times here, is the big thing to go and emphasize is that we are talking about China. Even though, like, they got these massive guidelines over here, even though, like, they really want to make sure that everything is clean, that everyone is doing social distancing, and that all their employees are wearing masks and stuff like that, like, this is a country that mostly has the pandemic under control, that their first wave is pretty much done by now. It's still lingering around, of course, and there are still a few hundred people that would get the virus every day, but it's definitely not worse than how it used to be. And so, like I said, they have things so far a bit under control in that country, and yet they still have to have those restrictions right now. They still have to go and follow those restrictions to make sure that things are not worse with the pandemic. And so with that said, because that China is in a position that's way better than most other people in the world, that's why we don't fully know when the others are going to be released. Because so far, like, there are some countries like Japan or France, and especially the United States, that are still in a bad spot, and they're not ready yet to go and open their theme parks. Like, they're definitely not as ready as China, even though some of them, like, they want to be ready, but they're not. The truth is, they are just not as ready. So that's one important thing to keep in mind, and that's why, like, with Shanghai Disneyland, they are the first to go and test and just test things out if these procedures are going to work. But honestly, looking into all this, the big thing to really go and emphasize is that this is not just going to be the new standard for the Disney parks. This is just going to be the new standard, period. Because we're going to see a lot more of this, like, even in your local area. Like, this isn't just going to be for theme parks or for big areas where social gatherings would be very common. Like, this is also going to be something that we are going to see, like, in stores, in groceries, in like, places like theaters. Like, we're going to see a lot of places where the security is going to get a massive boost, and we are going to see a lot of people that are going to keep an eye out to make sure that these procedures, these guidelines, will be respected at all times. And this is one thing that I really want to go and comment on. And honestly, this is something that I have noticed that with this pandemic, that honestly I feel like we need to take a moment and actually stop having this mentality. And that is regarding the fact that people are really anxious of having things get back to normal. Because that's kind of, that's all ultimately the big dream that people want right now, is that they wish for things to get back to normal, to have it be like how it was before this pandemic even happened in the first place. But sadly, the truth is that we don't know when that's going to happen. We don't know when things will be back to normal. We don't know when this pandemic will end. And sadly, there is only one way that things can get back to normal, and that is when we would discover a vaccine. And not only a vaccine that can work, but a vaccine that it can be enough that people can go and send all around the world so that everyone can go and have it, so that they don't go and catch the coronavirus, thus ending the pandemic. That's the only way it can go and work. But the catch is, we don't know when that's going to be invented. We don't know when that's going to happen. We don't know if it's either going to be like in a few months or even in a few years. I mean, a lot of people are saying that it's most likely not going to happen in 2020, that it's probably maybe sometime in 2021 or in 2022. So that's kind of the big thing to mention about this, is that yes, eventually we will see a lot of non-essential services be reopened, kind of like Disneyland and stuff like that. Eventually they will come up, but we have to make compromises where we have no choice but to follow the rules in order to go and respect the guidelines, so that we don't go and spread the coronavirus, that we do have to wear masks where they are going to become more and more mandatory, and that there will be stores like Costco where they will not allow people to come in unless they would wear a mask. And then and also, like, you got social distancing where that's going to become more and more mandatory, where that's going to pretty much become law at this point. And then you're also going to have, like, you're going to see a lot more places where they will offer hand sanitizers, where people are going to be heavily encouraged all the time, every day, every hour, to either go wash their hands or use hand sanitizers. Like, that's going to be the point where, like, that's just how things are going to be in life. And instead of just waiting for normal to come back, we have to learn to adapt into the new normal. We just have to accept that in the meantime, even though we know for a fact that this will be temporary, this is just how life is going to be. And we have no choice but to learn to go and adapt to it. And we have to do everything we can ourselves to make sure that we do not go and catch it and not spread it to anyone else. That's why we have to frequently wash our hands. That's why it's highly advised that we have to go and stay at home and only leave for just essential services. That's why we gotta wear masks. That's why it is very important to practice social distancing guidelines, to do the best we can in order to not touch our faces. And I will confess, I freaking suck at that. If you watch my camera, then you know that I am not great when it comes to touching my face, because I am really guilty of that. I am aware that I should do my best in order to just not touch it in general. But that's kind of the big thing. We have to learn to start adapting to it instead of just waiting. Because the thing is, the more we wait, the more we would just become impatient. And that's exactly what we are seeing in the United States right now, with all these idiots trying to go and protest and think that they could just force their way in order to put things back to normal. That somehow they think that, oh, we just want things to be back to normal. We want the economy to rise back. We care about things to just immediately get back to normal, have things like how it used to be, with or without the coronavirus and all that kind of bullcrap. They think they could just go and force their way, and that for the rest of the time, their solution would be to just ignore it. That the only thing that they would enforce onto people is to just not talk about it. You know, to pretty much act like those idiots in the comment section whenever they get triggered, or when someone would discuss about a serious subject matter, and then they would leave out a comment like, why do you have to talk about politics? Stop talking about politics. Am I the only one who's sick and tired about him talking about politics? Like, pretty much, like, and that's essentially the same thing. Like, those people who make those comments of stop talking about politics, they pretty much have the same intelligence as the people who think they're protesting to end social distancing and to end the quarantine and all that kind of bullcrap. But you cannot do that at all. It's just not the smart thing to do, because we are literally in a situation where, because of the coronavirus, you could actually die from your own ignorance and stubbornness. Or you might end up getting sick and you can end up killing someone else because of it. And it could be someone really close to you. And that's the problem with these people. You know, that's the problem with these idiots who think that they could force their way into putting things back to normal, is that they only think of themselves. They don't think this is a real problem unless it directly affects them. And there are people out there that think that eventually this would just end off. Eventually, that this pandemic will just sort itself out and the problem would solve itself. Like, oh, well, summer is coming and the summer heat will kill off the virus. That's not how it freaking works, dude. That's not how the virus is going to go away. It's not magically going to disappear. Like I said, the only way is going to be with a vaccine. And that's the big thing I want to emphasize, is that instead of waiting, we should go and adapt to the new normal and use that in the meantime in order to wait for the regular normal to go and come back. I know, it freaking sucks. And even for me, I wish for things to get back to normal. I mean, right now, I live in the Canadian epicenter of the virus, and it freaking sucks to see that even, like, as all the other provinces are doing well, like, somehow us in Quebec, and especially in Montreal, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And especially with our very restrictive social distancing guidelines, you know, it really sucks. I hate it. But unfortunately, the only thing that we really can do in order to make things better is to adapt the new normal, and that we must follow the guidelines, that we must wear masks when we go out, that we must wash our hands very frequently every day, that we must practice social distancing at all times, especially when we go out, try to not touch our faces, and do all the other practices in order to minimize the damage of the coronavirus. That's the only thing that we can do, and we have no other choice when the other shops are going to be opening and when all the other things are going to be opening as well, just like Shanghai Disneyland, to bring it all back to the subject that I am talking about. Considering that Shanghai Disneyland is going to be reopening, and they're pretty much opening with a lot of restrictions and a lot of major guidelines, we're going to see that all around. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, while we are going to see places like cinema, you know, like cinemas, arcades, or shopping malls, or a lot of shops and restaurants, they are going to be reopened, but they are going to have some very strict guidelines in order to go and follow so that they could go and minimize the damage, which is exactly why there's no point in waiting for normal to come back, and all we can do is just adapt to this new normal in the meantime. Yes, it is going to be temporary. Yes, there will be a time that it will end, but waiting will do nothing. All we can do is just adapt. And then, as soon as we know it, that's when the pandemic will be gone and that the normal that we want will come back. Oh boy, that was one heck of a rant about the coronavirus, wasn't it? And now it's time that I want to go and pass on the mic to you. I want to know from you all, from the chat wall, and I would like to ask, how do you feel about Shanghai Disneyland reopening with these new guidelines? Do you think this is a smart idea? Do you think that this is going to be the new way how the Disney parks are going to reopen? Let me know what you all think. Okay, let's see now. This is a good sign that sooner than rather later, this pandemic will slowly start to ease. But it does seem a little bit early. Plus, there is a factor of jealousy since I had to sacrifice my vacation to Walt Disney World this year. Actually, speaking of which, last night I had a really weird dream where at one of the park's restaurants, I ran into Bertram Winkle. I don't remember much after that, but I do vaguely remember of a park-wide orgy. I don't know either, man. I'm not gonna ask any questions. You have fun with your little dream there. Like, I don't know. Then again, like, I don't think a park-wide orgy would be a good thing. I don't think it would follow any of the guidelines. That's a bad dream. I can tell you right now, you had a bad dream. That's almost a nightmare because it doesn't follow any of those guidelines. Oh my god. Oh man, some dreams can be crazy, man. Okay, anyways, moving right along. I am very interested to see how this goes. I do feel this is going to be a true test to see how Disney will handle the other parks. I do feel that Hong Kong Disneyland will be next to open. Also, this pandemic is definitely going to affect Disney World's 50th anniversary, like with the new castle design. And to people who don't like the design at all, I can ask is, what would you rather have, this or another castle cake situation? Okay, you know what? I'm going to be very honest with you all, and I'm going to say a very controversial and unpopular opinion. I actually do like the Cinderella castle cake design. I do, but hear me out though. It is not because of the design itself, but it's more because of a personal connection that I do have. Because to be honest, ever since when I was a child, one of my first visits to Disney World is with that Cinderella castle cake. Like, I actually do have pictures of me when I was like 5 or 6 years old with that Cinderella castle. Like, that's just a giant freaking birthday cake. So honestly, I actually do like it, but it's mainly because I do have a personal connection with it. Okay, anyways, I can't believe that China handled the coronavirus better than the United States. Well, honestly, I'm not that surprised. I mean, have you seen the United States leader? That guy alone is a disaster. Anyways, I know this country is suffering badly right now, but if they follow what China is doing, then things would likely get better for them. I know Americans want things back to normal even for themselves, but I'm afraid it's not going to happen. I know it sucks, but protesting is going to oh, you mean it's not going to help? I know it sucks, but protesting is going to help. But if they keep ignoring the guidelines, then it would make things worse. For now, let's adapt to the new normal until a vaccine is created. Exactly, dude. Exactly. Anyways, let's see. I'll read one more comment because, yeah, we've definitely dragged this one for long. Let's see. Reopening a theme park will certainly be a huge task for not just Disney, but for also the visitors and the workers. Though I may have my say on this, with the virus going on and how the world is reacting to it, I don't think that the normal we once knew in the past will never come back. We may still have to do a bit of social distancing in the future, so we don't suffer another pandemic. Yeah, and you know the sad thing is that you're right, dude. You're honestly right about that. Like, even after the pandemic is over, like the mental scar from it, like, that is not going to leave, and that will stick with us for a very long time. But anyways, with that said, that shall do it for this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, and wow, what an episode it has been, and a pretty big one too. Now, with that said, I just want to say thank you all so much for checking this out, and thank you so much for joining me. It has definitely been a fun episode, and hopefully we will see more of this kind of madness in the next episode next week. But with all that said, I would like to say thank you all so much for watching, thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, see you later, dudes.